Welcome. These will be my thoughts on Arrow Season 2, Episode 18, Deathstroke. The episode is rated TV-14, so this video there will be spoilers for the episode and all the ones leading up to it. Another episode I absolutely love. Holy crap. Okay, so yeah, Deathstroke indeed has a very clever plan, and it looks like it is going off without a hitch. He knows Oliver so well. He knows exactly how to get the result that he wants. Like, holy crap. Okay. Let's see. No deleted scene for this one, so I am gonna jump directly into, yeah, the, let's see. What was the opening scene of the episode? So much happened. Right, yes. So we're back to, yeah. So Wilson drives Miss Queen, and yeah, again, so much to love. So the way that he'll, like at first we're not sure what exactly is he gonna do, and so he doesn't drive her home, but he also doesn't drive her to some other, he tells her to leave the car, and but yeah, the he pretends to, like, to really, yeah, sympathize with her pain. He recognizes it, but he doesn't, share it, and for her particular situation. And yeah, he hands her, what's that called again? Kleenex or something, and you have the thing about the heartbreak can be difficult to, get over. Some people never recover from it. Yeah, that's, and to her, it sounds like he's just, yeah, showing sympathy, and, yeah, surely he has had some heartbreak in his life as well. Okay, I'll stop calling you Shirley. And we, the audience, know that he's saying, my heartbreak is why I'm doing this to you and your family. And let's see. Yeah, she runs, and Blood is there to grab her, and yeah. I think that does bring us to when Oliver is so yeah, Roy is learning, bow and arrow, and he misses quite spectacularly. They weren't careful enough to, cover up those, yeah. I like that Oliver's advice is next time aim. And the let's see. Right, I forget if I've mentioned it, but I do really appreciate that in the intro they are now showing like clips that, yes, fit what the the voiceover says, but also like relate specifically to the the episode and such. So when Oliver says 5 years on a hellish island, now we're seeing Slade torture him on the boat. The yeah, kind of using it as a previously on. And I think that brings us to, let's see, I feel like there was at least one other thing in that scene, but I can't quite place it. There were multiple scenes in that location. So I think for now we're gonna go to the... Oh, I think that might be when, yeah, so Felicity shows up, and, she... Yeah, so here's, the messages from the office. Well, throw them out. That's what I did with last month's. And yeah, by now it's like, no, you really do have to respond to at least this meeting at the very least. And I think that brings us to the first of the flashbacks. So yeah, Sarah did indeed say, yes, she is intending to give Hendrik, but she's not, she's not just going to trust Slade to hand back Oliver. And I think that does bring us to... Yeah, so Oliver goes to the meeting, and, so great to see Summer Glau again, and I think this was my favorite episode with her so far on this show. Yeah, I like that she is now, what's it called? Rescheduling meetings so that, because he's usually half an hour late, well, more than half an hour recently. And I like that she says, "I'm glad you came out of hibernation." And she says, it's an unorthodox partnership, but it works. And I mean, technically that's not even really a lie. It's just that it works for her and Slade, not Oliver. And I like Moira. So yeah, Moira shows up, and at first I thought that she was there because Thea was missing, but it was, to reassure, to make sure that he was gonna take it seriously, that the campaign. And yeah, how is Miss Rochev these days? Is she still upset that a house dropped on her sister? That's... yeah. And I think that does bring us... let's see. I think that might bring us to the actual debate scene. So yeah, let's see. There's the... yeah, we have the really excellent bit of direction and planning and such with, we see Oliver. There's this long-ish take for a show like this, long take, where, he's like walking and he's on the phone and he has to like pause to not bump into someone and, stuff like that. If you actually like sit, like I didn't sit and count, but I don't think there's much more than maybe 3 or 4 people total carrying around stuff in that shot, but it's just enough that it feels, like, okay, we really are on this like incredibly busy, I forget what that's called actually. Is it a set when it's nonfiction? Anyway, you know what I mean. And the let's see. I think that might bring us... yeah, so the debate itself, fairly straightforward American political debate of the mid-2010s. And I think the yeah, so yeah, setting that up as, okay, I guess this is just how it's, it might be in a fictional universe, but it looks a lot like a typical American political debate these days. And then we get, well, let's go to the video questions. We have one here from Thea Queen. That can't be right. And like immediately, I was sitting there thinking, so when exactly, what's gonna, at first I thought that it was going to be revealed before the debate. But then once the debate ended, they said video question, immediately we're like, oh no. And just like, holy crap. And yeah, Thea sitting there, in distress, and Deathstroke right behind her, like, yeah, holy crap. Slade knows exactly how to push Oliver's buttons. And the, let's see. I think that brings us to the second flashback. And yeah, very clever, this thing of, yeah, I think that's the debate actually, and yeah, continuing to really appreciate. I'm afraid I forget his name, but the father, the priest, his characterization. You know, I am not fond of conservative Christians in various Western countries, including America. I am willing to acknowledge there are a number of Christians, including priests and the like, who fight to, yeah, because this is the exact kind of situation where you would want someone who, you know, yeah, like he is thinking about how, this is unethical, to give Hendrik up to be killed. And I think the Bratva guy saying, well, he'd do it to us, as if that's an argument for killing someone, right, and I like the thing about, it's not personal. Well, maybe a little bit. I think that is that entire scene. Right, I really enjoyed the exchange. What gives, why do we get to choose whether he lives or dies? And the Bratva is like, because we got him tied up. I mean, if that does not sum up, organized crime in one sentence, like, yeah. I feel like that brings us back to the... So yeah, then we have the... Is that when... Yeah, I think that's when the... When Team Arrow try to find Slade and the... Let's see... So much happened this episode. Let me see if I can remember accurately. I think that's when the yeah, because there's the thing about, there's a right. One thing I definitely want to make sure to say, I really appreciated like Felicity, like on more than one occasion this episode, she's like, it's Thea, we have to say, do what you have to save Thea. She really, like, Thea is not like perfect. She sometimes makes mistakes, but like she is someone that the people who know her really want to keep safe. I think that brings us to the so they find the Felicity does her thing with the computer, and they let's see, they seem to find the and go to the building, and he's there, but he's not, he knows what he knows, but he's not telling. And I liked Roy as the enforcer, punches him, man asked you a question. And Slade just spits, and that's it, because like, yeah, sure, there's miracle in Roy's veins, so too are there in Slade's, so yeah, not a big deal. And yeah, he just says, right, I have quite appreciated Sarah readying the poison darts for the and Oliver, gets Slade arrested, and yeah, I really appreciate the way that they later acknowledge, sometimes he is a little too eager to make decisions and not really listen to others, and Slade knows that and knows to use it. Now Roy isn't part of the team, so it's going to be that much more difficult to stop Slade. And by the end of this episode, he has an army, and they don't have a Hulk. I think that does bring us So yes, they have, oh, let's see, I think actually, yeah, around there is when the yeah, so Oliver at the office, and you know, Isabel makes sure to make it seem like she's really helping, and so he makes her temporary CEO, and it's one of those things like immediate, or like, I don't know if that's a good idea, but what else is he gonna do, So yeah, really, really well done. And she even, says, I can't accept this, like to really make sure that retroactively twisting the dagger and also making it more convincing. Like if she jumped for joy as soon as he did that, like hypothetically he could rip up the paper right in front of her and be like, I don't trust you anymore. But obviously she's not going to do that. But still, it adds something that she pushes back. I think that brings us to, yeah, so at the police station, we have the thing about how they're going to have to release Slade because he can prove, it was like 72 hours he's been in Costa Rica, which, yeah, like he would not have had a difficult time, going there and then like, yeah, having these videos and very quickly getting back just in time to do this. And yeah, and yeah, without evidence, it's and so, yeah, Oliver talking to Slade was really great. And yeah, the thing about, that's really your first question. Well, you already told me you're not going to tell me what he is, so yes. And while I try to recall what the next scene is, I am just real quick going to note that Datamail made yet another excellent video, as per usual. I believe it is, my wrists are too sore to check right now, but I believe it is called AI Has a Humanity Problem. And yeah, really, really solid work. Comes very recommended. Now, I guess I don't have that much to say about Trump that I haven't already that isn't just a variation. I mean, yeah, let's see. His New Year's Eve greeting was ridiculous, as we, by now we're used to. Yeah. Let's see. I think the next thing was when so they have to release Slade right before, he was just about to say, could you wait just 1 second? And yeah, let's see. That's when, yeah, so they put a tracking device on, but it was cloned. Yeah, I bet Slade isn't even ethical enough to think of all the problems that cloning, creates, ethically speaking. But yeah, so yeah, very nicely done. Again, ever so often someone does manage to beat Felicity's computer hacking game. And I think that brings us to, yeah, it was very nicely done on how, they all at different points try to follow, and Sarah catches up to a car, but it's not the one that, yeah, Slade's not in it, and Roy doesn't have eyes on, and Slade just gets away. Like, holy crap. I think that brings us to yeah, so flashback, yeah, the thing about, they find yeah, they mine a mine, and yeah, Bratha noting, the KGB taught him about explosives, and he has that's where he gets several of the best lines of the entire episode. in no particular order. Yes, I can remove explosive. Without killing us? Not so sure. And, okay, probably my favorite. Congratulations, we are not dead. And I think that does... Yeah, and you're right, yeah. Another one of them is, when did you get so scary? Yeah. And the, let's see. Did I lean my Russian accent a little too heavy into vampire? Longtime friend, frequent commenter, Arts Cafe recently commented that I should sound like, I think he said vampire or Dracula or something like that. So yeah, guess that was on my mind or something. Anyway, I think that does... But yeah, and that is also, it is very clever of her to rig him up with explosives like that. Yeah, so Oliver... Actually, I think the next part is the first part of the discussion in the lair. And yeah, we can understand each of them, but yeah, Roy is out of line. It is true that, and I quite like the thing about, you're going to kill me for... And right, the... what did he call them? King, Queen, I think. And yeah, the thing with, you're going to kill me because I dared to question Mr. Queen. No, it's because you're hurting my friend. And yeah, I really appreciate it. Even Felicity, tries to help de-escalating. I mean, we know that she sometimes gets very scared, and it can, yeah, I mean, she tries to always do the right thing. I really like the thing about, what could possibly happen by me telling Thea, that I'm a vigilante. Well, last guy I told was hit by lightning, but I guess it's statistically unlikely to happen again. And I think that does bring us... Yeah, loved when, yeah, Moira talking about how the, she never thought that, she thinks about how others can hurt her kids, but she never thought about how much she could herself. And I have heard from parents that that is something they really struggled with. So yeah, really appreciate being on a show. Again, a bunch of the people watching the show are going to be, or were, teenagers. It's, 12, this episode's like 12 years old, but yeah, it's really good to have that in mind before you start having kids. I wonder if for some, when they hear that, they might think maybe, maybe no kids for me. Personally, that is the primary reason I've never had and never will have kids. I would be terrified that I would do something. Yeah. I would mean well, but what if I was wrong? And yeah, moving on. Let's see. Yeah, and, Oliver takes it to heart. I liked her trying to, the question, do you know someone who would hurt you? And she's, she thinks, well, Malcolm Merlin. And she says, well, maybe a family of one of the 503 killed, which, I mean, technically, Tommy was one of them. So, but yeah, obviously she can't say, well, no one who's still alive, as far as you know. Now, I think that brings us to, yeah, so Oliver, yeah, he goes and finds the meeting, and this time he was not half an hour early. Very nicely done, subtly planting the idea in our head. Oh wow, she really is looking out for him now. and then subverting it like that. And yeah, she got to fight some. Very, very cool. I believe I said that in at least one of my videos on an episode that she was in. You know, Summer Glau, she is really, really good in these fight scenes. You know, that is, yeah. I mean, she was in a lot, I'm not going to say how much, of the Terminator show, and a very prominent role at that. I think that does cover... Let's see, there's definitely something else. What was it? It's right on the tip of my tongue. Yeah. You know, she explains what she did, and the thing about, yeah, I say they lost faith in you, but that would imply they ever had any. And yeah, Oliver deduces, you know, you're working for Slade, and she corrects him with. And she says the reason she's doing it is the sins of the father, which, yeah, so Robert did something that is, yeah. That's the thing, like, Moira didn't trust Isabel, and, you know, sometimes it's, yeah, she recognized that Isabel was not to be trusted. And, yeah, the thing about, you know, it's, what did she say? It's cute that you still think this didn't go exactly the way he wanted it to. And I think that might be where we have the, let's see. I feel like there's a flashback around here somewhere, so let's do that. So yeah, Slade and some others show up, and they do, you know, they bring back both Oliver and Ivo, which I am interested to see how that's going to play out. Ivo with these others, you know, like, essentially, like, there's Sarah, and then there's, you know, all the people that Ivo tortured and such, and yeah, they can definitely do something interesting there, so I'm looking forward to that, because Ivo is manipulative, we know. And yeah, I seriously respected that Oliver actually stood in front of Sarah when the gun was, when Slade was threatening to shoot. And yeah, you know, they readied the TNT, but then, you know, he can smell it now, and yeah. And yeah, instead of, you know, killing them, he just slices it, you know, destroying it. And then Shadow is there, very nicely done. And yeah, I'm so glad they found this. You know, I don't know if we're gonna keep seeing her, but certainly they now do have a perfect way to incorporate her, and she really is such a talented actress. So yeah, really, really well done. Love that they found a way to keep her around like this. I think that brings us to the part where, yeah, so Slade talks to Thea, who understandably no longer trusts him. And then we have the thing about, you know, you're free to go. My men won't shoot you. But if you leave now, you might never know your brother's secret. He has a secret. Would you like to hear? Holy crap. And I honestly, I thought that it was the other secret that he was going to, you know, good thing that Oliver didn't say, I'm not really Arrow later, because that would have been like, what? Um, what specifically did McGee say? But the, yes, I think, that brings us, let's see. I swear, it's right on the tip of my tongue. So the, a little bit too much sugar, a little bit, well, more than a little, too little sleep. Let's see. Yes, so we have the part where the, so it's the, yes, it is the... let's see. Yeah, so yeah, Oliver, goes there. Awesome climax. Like, holy crap. Him fighting all those, some hand-to-hand, some bow and arrow work. Just, yeah, really, really great. And, yeah, Thea's not there. And, Felicity tells him, that she's in the police station. And now, she confirms that it really was Slade. And we find out not long after, the Pike still says, no, we did the right thing. That's an American cop for you. And I think that does bring us to... let's see. Yeah, love the intercutting. I thought that by the end of this big scene that, we even have Felicity say, stop him, end this, but right, and I like his reaction to, the calling you Deathstroke. That's a bit dramatic. I like it. But yeah, it looked like he was going to fight Oliver, but instead, he stops this, prison transport, and the guard steps out and says, Halloween was, it isn't Halloween right now. No, in Halloween, it's a bus full of people being transported between mental health care facilities, not convicts. But yeah, yeah, that is very clever. Like, yeah, bunch of violent criminals who owe their freedom to Slade. That's gonna be a really dedicated army that is, they lack compunction. That comes in handy. And I think, yeah, and so Oliver comes back to, the situation in the lair, and yeah, it's one of those things. Like, Roy is, what's that line? He's out of line, but he's right. Because, yeah, like, if Oliver had debated with the others, and if they really thought about this, like, they didn't have to turn Slade over to the police. And I appreciated that, when Roy lays out his argument, like, they don't really say that he's wrong. They just don't want him to be hurting, yeah, physically injuring Dig, for example. But, technically, yeah, like, they could probably have, there might have been a better chance if but Oliver feels so confident that he knows best, and he knows Slade better than the others, and Slade knew that he would. And hence him setting up the alibi. That would be completely wasted effort if they hadn't gotten Slade arrested. If they had kept Slade, well, I guess I don't know if they have anything strong enough to keep him in place, but, like, hypothetically, like, between with all three of them fighting Deathstroke at the same time, that might be able to slow him down at least. Oh, holy crap, yeah. The part where he describes, how'd you make it off the island? I swam. Got pulled under. Rocks sliced me to the bone, but the miracle healed me. That was really, really cool. Just like, holy crap. And yeah, Manu Bennett, like, what an actor. Just incredible. Yeah. And I think that brings us to the part where... is that when Oliver tells the others, that Roy is right, and, this was his fault. He thought about how much Slade could hurt Thea. He didn't think about how he could screw this whole thing up. And it is true, he shouldn't have trusted Isabel, and he should have listened to the others about, what to do about Slade, because clearly Roy was very opposed to the idea of having him arrested. And Cop Officer Lance, they pulled the trigger on the thing that they've been teasing. He could be arrested for working with the vigilante, and now he's done it again. Yeah. And the thing about, if you tell us who he is, then that's that. And Quentin is like, well, who's got two thumbs and has no clue who Arrow is? This guy. And he thought that was a compelling, he thought, I'm safe now, because he's like, well, but I'm a cop. You're not supposed to do cop things to me. Everybody else. Okay, not to the cops, not to rich people who don't owe other rich people a lot of money that they can't currently pay. Those are the rules. Thin blue line. And I think that is a very compelling, holy crap. That's going to be, Slade is doing a very impressive job. Really do it. Okay, by the end of this episode, he no longer has the element of surprise on them, because basically, there's a warrant out for his arrest now. Everybody knows, but he'll just keep hitting. He's good at that. That's not something that's a big problem. It's not like he doesn't have anybody who can do work for him in the city. People still trust Blood, for example. That was also great. Laurel showing up. She was there to, for Moira, but she did want to apologize to Blood, because she, at this point at least, genuinely does think that she was wrong, that he is not, the brother Blood. So, yeah. Let's see. I think that does bring us. Let's see. Let's see. Okay, so there's very little left. I think I'll briefly talk about. So yes, Shadow. We get more of her in the flashback, and we see that what she says. When that was also, we in the previously on, we saw him say to Oliver, you're gonna suffer here, and now we realize retroactively, because he sees Shadow as this spirit of vengeance, basically. That would still have been a better name for the movie Peppermint. I genuinely have no clue why they called it Peppermint. Not that great of a movie either, but I feel like calling it something. Oh wait, was it Spirit of Vengeance? Or am I thinking of Ghost Rider? He's the Spirit of Vengeance. Whatever. There was some other title, I think might have been the Spirit of Vengeance, for that movie, and for some reason they went with Peppermint, because peppermint ice cream, whatever. Anyway, it tastes good, but what does that have to do with the... Moving on. I know what it has to do with. I'm saying it's a bad way to sell a movie like that. I wonder how many people didn't watch it just because they thought, oh, it must be Jennifer Garner. The movie's called Peppermint. Is this another one of her romantic comedies or something? I'm not dissing those. I can enjoy watching. I have, on purpose, multiple times watched 13 going on 30, Anyway, I think... Yes, so, he pictures Shadow as telling him how to get revenge. That's how he's remembering her. He's not honoring her memory. He's basically putting her face on the darkness within himself. And we see in the present day scenes, he's still doing that, so very nicely done, and fantastic performance by the actress, because it's so unlike the real Shadow, but it feels like it is this sort of twisted, warped, version. It feels like this is how he remembers her, because he, the memory of his loved one is just poison in his veins. It's one of those cases you got to be careful not to push it too far, because if it just feels like a completely different character, then it's like, well, okay, I mean, it's not very, it doesn't have a huge emotional impact on the audience. Now, I think, doesn't that bring us to the, so there's just a few left. I like that the various, both, so, Blood and Moira both say that they're gonna, and Slade, after he gets released, say they're going to put money towards, and resources towards finding Thea. Yeah, so Thea, yeah, they pick her up and take her home, and we see, yeah, she's like completely devastated, and the, yeah, really, really nicely done on the tension, because like we knew, because we saw early in the episode, as soon as she heard, your brother has a secret, would you like to know it? She stops moving, and this right after, she's pretty much said at this point she doesn't trust him anymore, understandably so, but she needs to hear, because she feels like there is something, and I think that does, yeah. And so, the secret that he told was that she's Malcolm's daughter. And yeah, and yeah, she feels so betrayed, and understandably so. Yeah, like the family is split. None of them really. I guess in this episode, I feel like there is a little bit of mending going on between Oliver and Moira, but even so, and yeah, I really appreciated that. Yeah, like Moira, she clearly isn't just pretending for others. She means it. She genuinely is emotionally devastated. She cannot lose Thea. And she admits that she does have a tendency to lie, sometimes even to herself, which is, of course, the first step on the way to no longer lying. So maybe she's going to get there, but yeah. And I think that does bring us to, yeah, so Sebastian is very angry that he's not going to become mayor. And, Slade points out, I promised you this city and an army to take it, and I've given you the army, which, like, yeah, I mean, if he doesn't win the election, that doesn't necessarily mean that he's not, yeah, he could still get a lot of power. And let's see, very impressive that, I mean, Summer Glau, as mentioned, I'm a big fan, and I'm short too, so this is not an insult. She is very petite, and she, like, Manu Bennett, like, as soon as he stands up out of the chair, like, he already looked powerful sitting there, but as soon as he stands up and, from that chair, he's, like, towering over her, and it doesn't feel like she's not intimidated. And that's very important for the character. I don't know if it's possible later on she might be, but right now she isn't at all. She is 100% on his team, and yeah, so really, really nicely done on that. And I think, yeah, and also very nicely done on how, some shots will show Shadow, and those are obviously from Slade's point of view, and others do not. They show the objective reality that she is not there. And I think, yeah, and Slade going up to Laurel's apartment and telling her the secret, and very nicely done, because like there I was thinking, oh, so is this still going to be another secret? Because like earlier in the episode, it's like, is Slade really going to tell someone close to Oliver that he's Arrow? Oliver is, not Slade. And they didn't go there, but then by the end of the episode they do, but it's with a different character, so we still get we get the expectations version, but we still get that payoff, because like this is gonna be a problem. Laurel is still like, I mean, she reluctantly briefly worked with him in an earlier episode, sure, but before that she tried to have him stopped, to the point where guns were pointed at him. So yeah, that is oh, I like Sarah having to cover, Sarah, does Oliver know you're working with the Arrow? Um, and I think that does, yeah, and Laurel, as usual, badass, standing right in front of this guy who, again, like, taller than her, bigger, she knows that he kidnapped Thea, and she's like, go to hell. Like, just, and his response, in good time, I'm sure. Yeah, I think that does cover the entire episode. Right, Oliver near the end saying, we're gonna end this, we're gonna fight back. Yeah. And yeah, so his position has been weakened, but the most of Team Arrow is intact and determined to stop Slade. I think that does cover the yeah, but yeah, so I will do another episode very soon, and it's hard to believe there's what, five episodes left by my count of this season's, and then I will do the first episode of The Flash season 1 at the recommendation of Arts Cafe, who I think I neglected to mention earlier in this video also requested that I do Arrowverse. So yeah, one man deserves the credit. But the yeah, and the fact that Isabel says, they're using Oliver's own company, well, used to be his company, to make more serum based on the blood sample. And yeah, holy crap, that is yeah, like, just so incredibly, yeah. Let's see, I think that does bring us to the let's see, hmm let's see, the yeah, it is clever, the idea that Isabel is getting to Robert through Oliver. We were told that there was some like, Isabel is not, she, from the start of this season, she was new to the show, but she's not new to the Queen family. And I think that brings us to, but yeah, when very, very compelling, when blood still sometimes lets his temper get the better. He knows better than to, he doesn't go as far as he could, because Slade did put him in this place last time. But yeah, he talks about how he was supposed to win the election. Now that's not going to happen. He's like, I'm going to be mayor. I will be mayor. Tom Ludlow, he's got his man now.